Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, am I excited for today. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote just for this episode. Don't be a dick and treat people like they want to be treated. And you'd be surprised what they do for you, for your business. Brian McNally, our guest today. Man, a fast friend, somebody that I respect on a very high level. He's introduced to me by somebody that is really on the Mount Rushmore of relationships in my life, the one and only Mike Drop Calhoun, great friend of the Culture Matters podcast, who speaks and sings his praises. Brian has not just been a successful entrepreneur, but a successful learner and unlearner, founding a business with a partner that had an exit that not only helped him and his family, but his employees will get into, and a steward of leadership, hard work, inspiration, background in hospitality turned sales, staffing, all of that we'll get into, consulting, and has a big fight coming up we'll talk about in August that we'll talk about his nonprofit. There's so much more to say, but thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast and really being inspiration. I was getting really fired up this morning preparing and watching some of your interviews on your YouTube channel. We'll tell people to subscribe to. So thanks for coming
Okay.
on the show and congratulations with everything. Yeah, former founder of Meleeo, investor, entrepreneur, Brian McNally. Thanks for coming on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Same kind of thing. As soon as I saw what you were doing and what you're all about, I'm like, God, I love this guy. I love what he's got going on. This just totally aligns with my vision and what I find important and what I
Mm.
really think is foundational in my success.
I was watching an interview right before this. I loved it. We'll talk about that. So employee Jenny has a vision of her kid to get into college. You and your partner and the culture was a part of what made that happen. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. So, we started off, it was a couple of guys, some laptops, some cell phones,
Yeah.
just taking the risk, just doing the thing, right? Just grinding out on our own, not bootstrap the thing with money we had saved up, and we were having a little bit of success, and we're growing, and we're in staffing business, right? So he and I both had sales backgrounds. We're going out selling the stuff, and then we're killing ourselves trying to fill it, and it was like this chicken and the egg back and forth, and you really need a true engine. And we'd worked with Jenny before, top performer, but like most top performers, they require compensation to be attracted to the business, right? And we had made the decision that, like, hey, we'd actually tried to hire somebody like cheap, young, out of school. We're like, we'll train him up, we'll teach him. She lasted less than a week, because we had to like cold call into hospitals. We're talking gritty stuff, like that most people, no CRM, just kind of, we needed a true professional, someone who could run the desk and handle that part of the business. So we're like, you know what, let's just change our mindset. Let's really focus on bringing in someone strong. And Jenny is the epitome of grit, right? And she's a top performer that we'd worked with before. And we'd reached out, and she's like, listen, guys, like, I need a certain amount of compensation to even make this make sense, right? And then I'm taking a risk with you guys. Here's what's important to me, right? Like, I know you're both successful. I know
Wow.
I have faith that you guys will figure this out. Um, but I want to, my son's really smart. He's a talented young man. Like, I think he can go to like an MIT or some sort of, I want him to chase starting his own business and kind of being a software tech kid, right? Like doing that whole line. And she goes, I really want to be able to pay for his college. Can you guys help me make that happen? Do you think if we do this the right way, like you can, and we bet on ourselves and we bet on her, and we were like, yeah, if we're achieving our goal and you're helping us do that, there's room in here for you to achieve that goal, that vision for you and your family. And so we took out an SBA loan to pay her
Wow.
the salary she needed to even, to handle coming over. So we bet on her and she bet on us. And we all set this North Star goal, right? Like, ours was to grow and exit the business, and she was aware of that. Her goal was to make as much money as possible during that process and share in the exit, right? So that right from the jump, employee number one, we're aligned and we're ready to crank, so
Wow.
we're in it together.
You talked about on other shows the importance of matching incentives to the
Yeah.
mission
Yeah.
Where do you see that so synergistic, or
Yeah.
where's the synergy?
I was a sales guy in company, right? And it always frustrated me, just looking at employees. I mean, it's just human nature, right? I mean, we all work for a paycheck. Certainly, that's kind of the minimum, right? That we want. We want to be valued for what we do. I think far too often companies don't really provide compensation that aligns with a true meritocracy. So I'm a big believer in variable compensation aligned with your performance in all areas of the business. And in certain areas where that's tougher, we align it with the overall performance of the business. So if you're in a support role and the company's doing well, I want to incentivize you to do the extra things in the support role too. So maybe you don't have a direct commission, but you're definitely going to have a quarterly bonus aligned with the overall company performance, right? And so we had that throughout the business. Um, and so when everyone has a shared mission and they're motivated financially, it just changes the dynamic. And I think it allows you to hire, and we paid outsized commissions and we paid overpaid support people and all those things because we didn't just want people, we wanted the best people. And we wanted those people to actually care about what they were doing, right? To be
Mm.
incentivized to go above and beyond and to live their values and perform at the level of excellence that we set for ourselves.
What connection do you think that thesis has in the like amount of work is expected of the leadership? That's
Yeah.
leadership being you guys in that case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning
Well,
like there might be some people thinking, oh yeah, I'll just really incentivize the pay and then I'll go play golf every day and go. I want to
at a
unpack
certain
that,
level you
your
could,
theory of that.
right? At a certain level you can, if you're going to bring in a CEO or something, but someone still needs to lead every day, right?
Yeah, like
And
how did you lead?
yeah. So we were big on just helping out and like chipping in with the team, right? I know people say like, oh, you want to be working on your business, not in your business. And I certainly agree with that. And that's very aspirational. But when you're talking about a bootstrap startup, like there's a period of time where you're working in your business for quite some time, right? You have to continue to work to get out of it and to bring people in. Um, we opted for kind of a relatively flat organizational structure, so not a lot of like middle management. And the way that we did it was we trained and mentored team members so that they could learn our skills. And then we implemented a mentorship program. So we didn't have a lot of middle management. We just had an organization of leaders and defined leaders, right? Whose job it was to groom the younger people. And
Wow.
we compensated them for it.
Where did the idea come from to do the training and the mentoring?
We'd worked in an organization that had a mentorship program. It didn't quite work the way that ours did. Um, but it's just through experience, right? When I was a new employee, I liked working right next to somebody who knew
Mm.
what they were doing so that I could always ask them questions and I felt comfortable. And people learn fastest by watching somebody and then trying to do it themselves, right? It's like do one, teach another sort of thing, right?
Hmm.
And so we just wanted to model that. We felt like it was the fastest way for people to get up to speed. And if you have that program, not everyone's coming to us with every question either. There's a layer, there's
Mm.
kind of a management structure, right? There's layers between you and the ground floor. Um, and they feel like they've
The
really got,
leverage came from the relationships.
yeah. And they get more ingrained in the business. They really feel like they've got someone they can go to and trust and ask questions to. And that's a cultural thing, right?
What do you mean?
In the sense that we fostered that with our senior team members, right? We challenge everything. We challenge everybody to be excellent, but there's a vulnerability in our leadership style where we're not afraid to foul in front of our team, right? It's all about the business getting better. Like it's,
Mm.
I will stand in front of everybody like, man, I screwed that up. Like, what can we learn from it? How do we get better? What do we need to fix? Where did that go wrong? Okay, cool. Everyone got it. Let's move on. Like,
If you
no
weren't
blame.
that way, if you weren't that way, how do you think that could have affected the
Oh,
growth?
I don't think it works. I think you need to model leadership. And that goes back to what you're saying. You can't just be absentee,
Right.
right?
Model.
You have to teach, unless you have someone who can model this day in, day out, it doesn't work.
I want to paint the picture accordingly. 0 to 10 million, pandemic down to 5, back to 50, get
Yeah.
acquired. Like, okay, but let's go back. This it was it Wesley, like Wesley, you're like $1,000. It's your first job out of college or something. or second. No, no, you did door to door credit or something. But this
Yeah.
Wesley character, right? You were part
Oh,
of that.
Wiley. Yeah,
I'm
Mike
sorry.
Wiley.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Wiley.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what was that like moving back home, $1,000? You're in your early 20s, and now you have this job with Wiley, Mr. Wiley.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not a Mr.
So
Wiley.
company was called McGrath Systems. And it's funny, I looked back on it. He was in the position I ended up being when I started Meleeo, right? Like he was a
Wow.
successful sales guy. He was probably in his mid 30s when he started McGrath Systems. He was hiring people right out of college, right? And he was just a frustrated sales guy who was like, I can do this on my own. I've done this. I've opened up enough sales offices. Like I'm good at what I do. Why don't I just do this on my own? And he took the risk and he did it. And so I graduated college. I got a degree in hospitality management. Thought I was gonna be Tom Cruise in Cocktail, and just this fun fantasy life. Realized pretty quickly my senior year of college that that was not a path to success for me or something that I wanted. And just found my way into sales, like a lot of people, just lost, right? Just trying to get a job, get benefits, like something where I
Mm,
can earn. It's hard out there, especially when you come out of college, you don't have skills. I had this desire to be wealthy, I think, and to like just live a different lifestyle. I had zero idea how to actually accomplish it, right?
wow.
So someone to talk to me about credit card processing stuff, like it's residual income. You sell it once, you live off the money. And I'm like, well, that sounds cool. Let me try that. And I had tried like Herbalife in college. I had tried like various things along these lines. So I understood the concept and I understood the value of it. But door to door strip mall credit card processing sales in August with zero skills in Florida, like I've learned pretty quickly, like, well, this is not the path. Like the idea is there, but this isn't going to be it.
Wow.
And I'm in Tampa. I don't know anybody. I got $1,000 in my pocket, and I'm like, I'm going home, heading, just head between my was a tail between my legs, and went home and went back into my childhood home and went and slept in my childhood bedroom, and got a job as a waiter
Wow.
at what is now a Dave and Buster's. Right.
What do you say to somebody that's in that position right now that just feels like there's no hope?
One step in front of the other. Like there was a dark time for me. I mean, I felt like a failure, right? I went off. I was a very independent person. I left my home at 20, like didn't come back
Wow.
or didn't plan on coming back. I was already very independent, sort of the idea of going home and I'd been paying rent on my own for years, the idea to have to go home and do that was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow. I think the key there is I would say stay positive, but that's not so simple. The real key for me would be to create some momentum. Like the first thing I did was like, all right, well, I got to get some income. Let me get a job. Let me start waiting tables. Okay. It's stability. It's something. Right. And then from there, it was use what is around. So for me, the reason I was home in Philly was network. I knew more people there than I did in Tampa.
Hmm.
Older people, with friends and families and cousins and, all those kind of things. Right. And I just started asking the network, who does anyone know anyone who's hiring? Right. And that got me various interviews. Like one was at a Yellow Pages company selling Yellow Page ads, like all kinds of random interviews. I went on like a dozen interviews. And then someone said, I know a guy, he's starting a company. He could use a young guy like you. He just needs hard workers. We'll teach you the staffing. And I'm like, okay. And that's how I
What
bumped
were
into Mike
your
Wiley.
what were your core values when you were doing the waiting? The wait you said waiting.
Yeah, waiting tables.
What would you
Yeah.
say your core values were?
Same as they are today, man. Same as they've always been. Just hard work, respect, treat people well, like do a good job because I like doing a good job. Like I was an awesome waiter. I'm not gonna lie. Like I took pride in doing it. I wasn't that guy who showed
It's
up like,
awesome.
hey, I'm like, hey, how can I take? Like I liked serving people. I still do to this day. If you come to my home, I'm gonna cook you a meal. I'm gonna treat you like
Wow.
you're in a restaurant. Like I like taking care of people. So it was easy for me. And services, hard work was always something I was taught. Right. So no matter what I'm doing it to the best of my ability.
Yeah. What do you think there's shortcuts?
The only shortcut I would say would be education. Do right?
How
Accelerate
so?
your
How so?
learning by learning
Okay.
from other people, right? Like that's a
Mm.
shortcut. Like, you don't have to learn every lesson. You can learn from other people's mistakes, right? And I don't think people do enough of that.
Mm.
And just reading, there's education, but the shortcut is implementing quickly.
How do
You could
you?
read all the
What's your
books in the world,
process?
but if you don't implement anything, you're not going to get anywhere. right?
How do you go through that thought process of, all right, I've read enough, let's go? Is there a ritual that you kind of go through?
I get bored, man. So if I just get excited
That's
by something, like
yeah, yeah.
sometimes in books, I'm writing a book now and I'm really trying to avoid being the very drawn out, extra long book for no reason, right? They give 19
Yes.
examples of everything. I'm like, dude, I get it. Like, this is the point. Let's just
Wow.
get to it, right? So I wanted to be more of a tactical guide. So what I try and do is I just try and implement, like before I even finish the book. Sometimes I don't finish books. That's okay. Like I get the point. I know the theme. Cool.
Were
I'm
you
moving on.
okay with that? Or did you have to learn how to let go? Because I come across people that can't,
I had to
they
learn
have to
that part.
finish it. You did have
I,
to learn that.
I did a little bit. Yeah. It wasn't until later. I'm like, well, this doesn't serve me. I just wasted another 4 hours of my life hearing the same story over. Like I got it after chapter 3. Why am I listening to chapter 17? Like it's the same concept, you know?
Were you
Just
into school?
so that's what I started doing in my business.
Oh, wait, yeah. Elaborate on that. Yeah. What do you mean?
We rapidly implemented change all the time.
Oh, I
Like, so if
love
you go
that.
back to like finding a mistake or an
Yeah.
error, like a challenge, like we didn't look at it like for blame purposes all the time. It just wasn't. This goes back to having that mission. It's just like, well, the goal is to grow this, exit, and sell it quickly, right? So I don't have time to sit here and be like, well, you did this or that. It's like all it is their findings, their documentation, their lab findings. It's, for us to tweak and adjust and make it better, and then move forward, right? Outside
Mm.
of effort, right? If somebody just purely isn't culturally aligned, they don't care to do a good job, they don't actually care to get better. All right, well, now I'm looking at you saying, yeah, I'm blaming you because you didn't even try. Like, you don't want to fix this problem. But if
Yeah.
someone's trying hard and mistakes are being made, cool. Let's all just learn from it and move on.
Let's say that someone they are disengaged. What advice could you have for our listeners of how to embrace that, approach that, relate to that?
I give them a few opportunities and I fire them, to be honest with you. Because I probably made the
Um,
wrong hire to begin with.
what do you mean?
Yeah, like if you got to really protect the seats in your business, especially from a startup perspective, in my opinion, and one that's
Yeah,
successful.
yep.
The seats are valuable, right? If you're aligning compensation really well, you're giving people a great opportunity there. You're creating a culture that allows them to be empowered, have autonomy in their career, right? Have a sense of agency. Like these are all things people desire. And your only ask is that you work hard and like to improve the business and that we all work together to go to this thing. And you're not on board. It's like a sport. It's a team, right? You get benched
Mm.
if you don't put in like that's it, right? So at some point you have to perform. If it's effort, but they're struggling in performance, I diagnose, train, and try and improve. If it's a lack of effort, a lack of desire to get better, a lack of respect and accountability, because to me, that's a lack of respect and accountability to your teammates. And the machine breaks down. They're all gears. It's like a watch, right? You get a gear that's just
Yeah,
not turning
yeah.
properly. You're never gonna have time on time, right? So it's like if there's someone in the machine who just constantly is breaking down because they don't want to operate within the mechanism properly, then you got to remove them. That's it. They just you give them the opportunity, you explain it. I'm very candid. I'm like, hey, here's what's happening because of your lack of desire to do this job. It's not fair
Here's
to
what's
everybody.
happening
You're not
because
accountable. You committed to this on the front end. This goes back to hiring. I set that expectation in the interview process.
what's
Like,
that
hey,
look like?
yeah, so it's just very clear. Like, hey, here's our culture. I give them the ugly really bad in the interviews. We started doing it like we're like, hey, you're going to work harder than
I
you've ever
love
worked.
this.
This is going to infringe on your personal life. Yeah, you're probably going to have to do some weekends. Like, this is not going to be, all puppy dogs and ice cream. Oh, but on the plus side, we have a lot of fun and we make a ton of money. Right? It's like
So
you
the
start with the
reality and
ugly.
then what's possible
Yeah, I
or the
want to see their
potential
face when I
reality
tell
as
them
well.
all the bad things about work before I tell them they're going to make a lot of money. I want to see how they respond,
Why,
how they
why,
squirm.
why?
Well, because if they hear hard work, sacrifice, and they start squirming, I don't care how much money you put in front of them. They're not the type of person. They're not going to suffer through for it. If they hear that and they're like,
Right.
okay, well, what's
I
the plus?
agree.
Like, and they're kind of intrigued. They're like, yeah, well, I'm not worried about that. Like, I work hard anyway. I know there's going to be sacrifice. That's kind of expected. What's the upside? Oh, okay, cool. You're still here. Yeah, here's the upside. You're going to make a lot of money. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to exit this thing. Right.
When you were going through that process, anecdotally, how many
Yeah.
people squirmed? How many people
A lot.
jumped up in the air? Like
Well,
I'm
it took us a while to figure that out a
fascinated.
little bit.
Okay.
It took us a while to
Yeah.
figure it out, because
Oh.
at first we were selling all the good stuff because we were like, hey, we got to attract people to come over here. Right.
Yeah.
And then you
You
get a
learn
couple
quickly.
people. Yeah. And you're like, wait a minute. No, we need to, they can't handle it. They don't want to do
Wow.
this. Like, let's get the other stuff out of the way. And a lot of it came from the team members. We really pushed the team
Mm.
to interview because we had a culture of accountability.
Okay.
And that's not a top down accountability. It's like um, I never served in the military, but it's very, I guess the best way to describe it is like for the man next to you sort of military mentality, right? Like the way that they treat, they'll do whatever they have to do to protect the guy next to them. Like that's kind of the mentality that we had. It was like, listen, you're going to one day need these people to rely,
Mm.
you're going to need to rely on them. You're going to need them to pick up the slack for you. You're going to need them to kind of be accountable to you to deliver. If you want that, then you need to feel that sense of urgency. And I want you to have every day to kind of come to work with a little bit of a pit in your stomach, not in like a really negative way, but in a way like, no, I got to deliver for the people around me. Like you should have that.
What did you see that do for the people as far like the meaning of in their lives?
It was awesome, man. We people throw around the term family a lot. They're like, don't call them your work family and yada yada yada, right? Like we naturally evolved. It started happening. People would be like, it's my family, man. We take care of each other. Like, because
Mm.
when you need something and someone's there for you, that builds trust. Trust, just like when you're dealing with clients, it's not built when things are great, right? Trust gets built with clients, gets built with team members when the shit hits the fan and you're still there. With
What
anyone in
advice do
your
you have
life,
for?
with your spouse, your
Yeah.
children, like, you know what I mean? I've been through challenges in my marriage. It's stronger today because we went through some shit,
Mm.
like, and I think that's work relationships, teammates, everybody, clients, everybody. And so how you
Mm.
show up with integrity, with accountability for those people, that's what builds those bonds, right?
Early on. So why were they calling you McNasty?
Oh, that was it. So after I left the McGrath systems, because we
It
were like
was
a
that, right?
boiler.
It was the nickname.
Yeah, McNasty for like
Yeah.
for a little bit. Yeah. So um I had come from this McGrath Systems. It was my first job as a startup, and it was very much like a grinded up sort of job. Like we were, I was making like 29 grand a year, working 60 hours a week in a basement, just
Wow.
calling on resumes, a stack of resumes out of a filing cabinet because we didn't even have an electronic CRM at the moment. It was like I had a binder with little notepads, and I
Wow.
just would call people all day long, cold call homes and try and get people to
This is
for
like
these.
2006,
Yeah.
7, 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
2006, electronic assembler, solder, people like soldering circuit boards and like welders and mechanical assembly people for like manufacturing facilities. And, that was like my first job, and it was and it worked well for me, just being like a hardworking guy. It was like, just work hard, make the calls. Like, again, that was a little bit more challenging environment. It wasn't as empathetic, right? But same thing. Like we had a mission. Like this company's growing, and if you don't like it, get out. Like we're gonna work our asses off here. That's what we do, and that's that. And so that was the first job. So I go to this big corporate job after that. So I went from like this small startup. We got to like 6 million. We're growing like crazy. It's awesome. Then I end up at $1 billion
Wow.
international staffing firm, and and it's a big corporate headquarters, and there's uh, a first meeting, we get to like a whiteboard meeting, and I'm used to challenging everything, right? Like, and again, from the standpoint of not to blame you, but because what are we here for if we're not trying to solve the problem, fix it, get better, like deliver for the client? Like that's all it was about.
Honest
And
and purpose, like honesty and purpose.
100% honesty. Yeah, exactly. Radical candor, right? Like that's it. And all in the service of delivering, right? So in staffing, a salesperson goes out, they find a job, they take the job order, and it's their job to be really detailed in what that is and qualify it, right? Because the recruiter then
Wow.
spends their time calling all these people working their ass off to deliver. So if either one of those isn't working, it breaks down, the machine breaks down, right? And
Well, let me
so
get
you
that
have
straight. The staffing analyzes and it figures out the base of the what the
like,
current state,
yeah,
and then
they
the
get all the details for the
okay.
job order from the client, right? Like, well, how many years of experience they need, what's the job, what's the environment, like, what are the hours? You need to get all that information to it, because if
Wow.
a
Okay.
recruiter's then going to call a potential employee and talk to them about the job, that employee's going to ask about 1,000 questions, right? All the questions you would ask if you were going to try and interview for a job. And if you don't
Yes.
have that
Yes.
information, it gets really hard to recruit. And if you're not
Yes.
knowledgeable as a salesperson to say to the client, well, hey, that wage you're offering isn't going to be enough, or that bill rate isn't going to be enough for us to get the right people, right? Because you have to qualify and get the right job for the recruiter to actually
So
be
there's
able
a
to.
consultative aspect as well, where the client has to level up their mindset,
Yeah. The
analogous to
best
like
people,
the
that's what you
extreme when you
do.
guys borrowed even to get Jen. Like sometimes you have to think bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have to
All
be
right, I'm following
consultative,
you.
right? On the
Okay.
sales side, so that the
Wow,
recruiter can
wow,
do their part. And so you have these
wow.
meetings, and the
Cool.
urgency to deliver in staffing is, especially in that environment, is like, you get a job that morning, like we want resumes that day, next morning, like, like it's urgent, urgent. We're just grinding. So you'd go to these stand-ups every day and you say, here's the jobs. Who do we have for this job? Right? Who did, So the environment I had come from at McGraw Systems, it was like, I've got the, or I don't have anybody. If you said you don't have anybody, it's like, okay, well, how many calls did you make? What feedback do you have? Like, why aren't they interested? Is it the set? Like, what can we go back to the client to fix to better make it fillable? I got to the new place and it was like, I don't have anybody. And they like went to move on. And now I don't have a dog in the fight. It's like my first week there. I don't have a
I
job
love
on the
it.
board, but I'm at a meeting. And so I'm like, hey, if I'm going to be here, like I'm going to contribute. So I was like, well, hold on a second. Why don't you have anybody? How many calls did you make? What did they say? I asked like a dozen questions. I'm like,
Oh, I love that.
what's the
Yeah.
feedback? What can we do to fill the job? And everyone was like, easy, McNasty. Like, what's your problem? And I'm like, I'm just here
That's
to I'm just trying to
yo.
get shit done, dude. Like,
What
you
a
know what I mean? Like,
wild. That's like a movie. Like what a wild foreshadow to what you guys would end up doing.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know, like from a sorry to interrupt, but
Oddly enough,
that's
that's the job I met
hilarious.
Jason at, my business partner.
No way. That is
Yeah.
so cool.
Hmm.
Hey, what do you say to somebody right now that's feeling like they're in an environment in a corporate or and even a small company
Yeah.
that they'd feel apprehension to say to be radically candid,
Yeah.
but they feel stuck. Like, and I want to unpack how you would navigate all that, of course. But uh,
Yeah. I mean, I
what's your
wasn't,
advice?
it's all learning, right? And so I, in a way, it was a good thing for me. I had to learn, okay, I can't always be a blunt instrument, right? Right to a
Yeah,
hammer,
yeah,
everything's a nail. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I ended up working for a guy, and he was very adept at understanding, political hierarchy and all that kind of within an organization. And one day he said to me, he's like, dude, you can't fight every fight. Like you're gonna have to choose your battle so that so you can get the wins you want. Like I know that's the environment you came from, but you're gonna get in these big corporate environments. You've got to figure out how to play the game at least a little bit, right? Like you can be you, but you're gonna exhaust yourself fighting everything. Like align your energy appropriately, right? So that you
Yeah.
can take on the big battles and win those. So there's always an opportunity to learn from somebody, right? While as much as I thought
Huh.
my way was the right way, and I still believe strongly overall it is, um, it softened my edge, right?
Wow.
So I could still get things accomplished. I just had to find a new way to do it, right? Which is ultimately a skill that helped me later as I started to sell to different people in my career, right? I'm like, oh, okay. I know how to soften that edge a little bit and communicate. So just improved my communication skills, right? And my tactfulness and my EQ and all that kind of stuff. I just had
I
to
was
work
going
on.
to ask, do you consider yourself, um, it's not a trick. I guess it almost seems like a trick question. Do you consider yourself emotionally intelligent? Would an emotional, how would an emotionally intelligent person answer that? Rather than that, like, what are your thoughts on emotional intelligence?
I think it's very important, and I'm glad to see it valued more now than in the past, right? I think ultimately, I don't know if I'd call it that. I didn't even know what it was, but emotional intelligence, communication skills ultimately became my strength, that and grit, right?
Grit? Why grit?
Because I'm just relentless. I mean, inevitably, I'll keep going where other people will quit.
Were there times early on? Well, Meleeo, correct? That
Yeah.
Meleeo was, and I would love to unpack the value proposition. It's a fascinating business in my
Yeah.
mind. That was a 7 year go, go, go.
Yeah.
There are listeners right now that might be thinking, I'm done. And that maybe like they're 3 feet from gold as that's that book. That's that book.
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill. Yeah, what do you say to that person? Because you
Yeah.
must have been there at one point.
Yeah. Year 5. I mean, year 5 with COVID, we lost 50% of the business in 6 weeks. I was devastated. I was just it was, I'm a pretty strong guy, resilient, that almost got me, man. I mean, that was
Wow.
because we were so close and I could see it. And it's like getting the rug pulled out from underneath you, right? We had built our initial goal when we set out to build the business was 5 to 7 years. We wanted to be a $20 million business. And then our goal was to kind of look up and look to exit at that point. That was just kind of our North Star. We knew everything else in between just was never enough. We were like, okay, more faster, let's go. Right. And so, which I think is an important kind of call out for people to make, had we made it more, I think we would have done more. Right. Like, I do think people start to go like, well, let's just get to here and then go to here. I'm like, yeah, you certainly want to do that, but know where you ultimately need to be, right? Like what makes sense for you.
Warren Buffett might be trying to go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah, right. So uh yeah, we had we did 10 million in 2019.
Wow.
And so we're like, okay, that's year 4 because we started in 2015. And we're like, okay, run rate at the end of 19 was starting off in 2020. By early March, we were on a $20 million run rate. So year 5, 20 million, like we're doing it. Almost mission accomplished at the front end time, right? COVID hits. We lose like 50% of the business in 6 weeks. We end up just staying flat that year, which was a miracle in hindsight. Like it was a long, grueling year for us and the team. And we hired people and we made promises to them. And it's like, it was tough, because they weren't making the money they thought they were going to make and all that kind of stuff. But to their credit, they stuck it out. And
Wow. Wow.
we ended up coming out of that, the back half of the year, COVID, what it took away, it gave back and then some. Because initially they shut everything down. And then hospitals just exploded. They were filled with, they had staff out all the time. It was wild, right? And so it was a lot more laborious to get people into work and travel because we were traveling nurses all over the country in the height of PPE and all this stuff. It was just chaos, right? But we ran and we went. And so we stayed flat in 2020 and then 2022 or 2021, we did about 30 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So we went from 10 to 30 million.
Was there a team meeting that you remember or something to that effect where you got everyone together? It's like, this is what the mission is. We're going here, or we'll
Oh, as far as the business and all that,
like
like the
in, well,
target.
because think about it, yeah, 10, we're looking at 20, we're telling everybody the truth because we actually believe we're going there. And then bam, half.
Well, we didn't,
How do you recalibrate to then get to where it's there, is
yeah.
it just getting everybody like in the movies, there's
In
a
the beginning
speech.
of 2020, we had just had like a big party at the
Wow,
office.
wow, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, where it was like we had like Jenny had made had cookies made with like dollar signs and you know what I mean? It was like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
20 million in 2020. Like we had a big sign, like we were ready. Like we had a big party, like a potluck, and we're like 20 and
Holy
20,
cow.
this is it. Like we're doing it. And and then
That's
that
a
happened.
culture. That's a culture. That's a great
Yeah.
story.
It was fun, man. We had a good time. And the culture also was that nobody blinked, man. We just kept fighting.
Okay, well, that's fascinating. No, okay, so that answered my question.
Well, I shouldn't say nobody
Nobody
blinked, but
blinked, and
like nobody gave up.
there was like, was it meaning things didn't necessarily need to be said? They were implicit in the behavior. It was,
Yeah.
uh, is that the trust, the respect, the building up of all, like, how would you, I don't, that's
Yeah. I
fascinating.
mean, we were there, me and Jason were there every day fighting visibly. Everyone knew we were working and grinding, right? And so this goes back to leadership,
Yeah, I
right?
want I want to highlight this because it's I want your opinion on this too. Is in our culture today, as I'm scrolling on platforms, much of what I'm hearing is trying to tell me as a business owner or fellow business owners that I should not want to fight the good fight for whatever reason. Like the employees are being told that they should have their own business, and the entrepreneurs are being told they should feel like less than if they
Who's
are
going to run the
working.
companies? Who's
Yeah,
there to,
so
who's
like I
actually?
love, as someone that's actually done that clearly, like, and when I was preparing, I was
Yeah.
getting more and more excited about this.
Yeah.
Uh, I'd like your take on that, because it's something I think is a part of our bigger culture.
Yeah. I think there's always time in your life where you need to gain that experience. Would I go back and start a new business today and put myself in that position without building leadership? Probably not. Right. But having not been in those shoes and walk that walk, how am I ever going to make sure that I hire the right person who is capable of doing it? Right. I think that's important. Like I do. And I would never trade that experience for anything. And it helped me grow as a person, as a leader, just as a man, man. I
Mm,
mean, to be honest with you, I learned a lot and I grew a lot through that experience. And the
wow.
team that was there through that, um, we earned each other's trust in those moments, right? There's times where, I had an employee, they had an issue on the West Coast at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday, and I'm here with my wife and kid, and it's like, she had something to do socially and was like, hey, I can't do this. She was having a couple drinks actually. She was like, I can't take this phone call. I'm half in the bag. I was at happy hour with the girls. And so she called me and I'm like, I'll do it. I got you. It wasn't like, well, we'll take care of it Monday or find
Yep.
some other employee to do it. I was like, all right, buck stops with me. I got it. Told my wife, I'm like, pause the movie. I got to take a phone call. I jumped on a call and I dealt with somebody for an hour in California or whatever. Right.
Mm.
Um, that's trust that gets earned. Right. And that's modeling what you expect other people, because I would expect an employee to take that phone call because it was important and need to happen. And if I don't take the ownership of that, how do I ever expect them to take ownership of that? Now, did I have to do it every single time? No. That's what you have a team for. I don't have to be on every call, but you can't be so checked out that you're not modeling the behavior you expect of other people because they just won't believe it.
How do you think that takes place?
Um, Effort to be on I know everyone wants to just be like the 4 hour work week and just hang out, whatever, but it takes a little bit of effort. You have
Mm.
to go through some stuff. Like I said, the bad times are where trust gets built. And it's like, I think you need to be able to do that. Now, you get to a certain size organization and cultures, then yeah, you hire people, but someone on your team, if it's not you as the chairman, right? Or as this, there needs to be someone at a leadership level who's doing that sort of thing.
Amen.
It can't just be the employees. You have to model that behavior.
Look, in hindsight, are you upset you didn't become a longshoreman?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, it's a great profession.
It is. Yeah. But,
What was
they're
it
out there.
about? Because your dad's was a longshoreman, or is he still doing it?
He retired.
Yeah. It really, I know people that have done that. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But what was it about like that he didn't want you to pursue that? I think that's interesting because clearly, if he was a venture capitalist, he would have done very well.
Yeah. So
Or maybe he is, I don't know. But
no, no, not his style. But so I think this goes back to just generational stuff, right? Like if you really think about it, right? Like, ultimately we're talking immigrant families, right? His
oh,
grandfather came over. They got, his dad then got a job on the waterfront. All my uncles got a job on the waterfront, like
from where? From where?
Ireland.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's
So,
we share
they're
that.
over here and they're just, you're constantly trying to improve the lot of your family and the next generation, right? And I think that's all it was for him. He was like, hey, I had to bust my
Yeah.
balls in the freezing cold weather for 40 years and go under a bridge and hope I have a job. Like, I don't want that for you. It's good money. There's dignity in it. There's dignity in all work, right?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but he didn't do that so that I could not improve upon his situation, right? He did that so that I had an advantage that he didn't have. And so it would be disrespectful for me to, not honor that and go out and try and build upon that life and build a better life for my children. Right.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing.
and I, and
I
I
agree.
think that's ultimately it. Now, the values that it taught me and the hard work and my respect for those sort of things is I took that into the white collar world, right? And I think it's my advantage, 100%.
Why?
There's just goes back to that grittiness thing, man. Like I came, like I watched my dad and get up and freeze his ass off and come home and work 48 hours straight outside in the dead of winter on the river,
Wow.
just so he could make overtime to make sure that I had extra money to go to Catholic school or play soccer and do have the extra things in life, right? So and my friend, and I would do work with my friends in the summers, and we're shoveling cement or doing labor stuff, and it's just like, are you gonna mean I'm gonna complain because I gotta sit in office and make phone calls today? Like, all right, dude, easy,
So
like
like
no
the
problem.
perspective.
Yeah, now it's a different type of struggle. It ain't easy to sit in that chair all day. I got plenty of friends who couldn't do it. Um, but that mindset to me, that perspective and the gratitude that like, hey, I get to do this. I could be doing other stuff, And that's
Mm,
not to say, honestly, if it's funny, things come full circle because I want to teach my son a trade, to be honest with you.
that's cool.
Yeah, I do think the combination of business skill and trades is undervalued right now, and it's a huge opportunity moving forward in light of AI and automation.
Why?
If you just think about the future, all these people who are like, learn the code, boomer. Yeah, well, where's your coding job now, buddy? It's gone,
Yeah.
right? That boomer who knows how to plumb, guess what? His kid, if he knows how to do it and he knows how to run a small business, is going to have a string of plumbing, uh, businesses. He's going to be able to do roll ups, So, like, my son likes swinging a hammer. I want to teach him that as much as possible. I would love for him to
Mm,
learn trades and then couple that with my business experience so he can actually go out. You're not going to, we have a shortage of skilled labor in this
yeah.
country. You're going to need it. Um, and we've got more white collar tech jobs than we could shake a stick at. And AI is solving those, right? So those people are going to need work, and the skilled tradesmen are going to be in demand. There's not going to be enough of them, right?
I like your thesis because the it's an interesting thing of like the more one becomes formally educated, it can actually have an inverse relationship to responsibility
Yeah.
because when you're in a trade or you're working with your hands, like you're doing,
You touch it,
so
you see it.
it's forcing that I got to do it to show like, and I do
Mhm.
think, yeah, that I like that. It's like showing the way, modeling. Back to the modeling conversation.
And dude, there's a certain level of satisfaction you get from creation. Like I thought it was money motivated, and it was. I think my main motivation was freedom. Ultimately, I just used money as a tool to get freedom because I just don't want to be told what to do. I really have a visceral reaction to being told what to do. Always have, always will. So I just hated working for people. I think Cody Sanchez goes like the unemployable. Like ultimately, I did it for a long time, but it was like soul sucking for me to be an employee. Like, I hated it. And
Wow.
so, you know, if you think about that, the act of creating the business and like what that did for other people and like the creative act of it all, I absolutely fell in love with. Like absolutely. And you can do that in a trade, right? Like every day you get to create and build something and it's like there, it's physically a physical representation of what you did that day. And that's pretty awesome. You didn't
Mm,
just shuffle some papers around. So it's interesting. It's like my dad pushed me away from that, but I also see the value in it. And I do think it's going to be there's going to be more opportunity there than in other areas moving forward.
yeah, that's an interesting point. Now the just so the audience is aware, you probably did sleep last night. Those are bruises from being punched in the face. I just want
Yeah, yeah. My wife said to do the laundry. I said no, and no, I will never not do the dishes again. No, chicken.
to.
So yeah, I'm training to do a amateur MMA fight. So I started training in 2020 when all that went
Wow.
sideways. So
Wow.
listen, I'm a big fan of the Constitution. I was not very thrilled to where our country was going during that time.
Yep.
Um, I thought I was losing my mind. I'm like, am I not seeing what's going on here? Right. Like, so that was a challenge. My business was failing. I had done a lot of work previous to that, but prior to that time from like a personal development perspective and just working on my physical health. Um, and for, probably 3, 5 months there, I really went sideways, gained a bunch of weight again, was just in a shitty mood, very my relationships were suffering, everything. I just wasn't being the man I wanted to be. I got out of social media. I downloaded Audible. I listened to David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me and Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership. Completely like looked at my life and was like, you need to take control. Done and done. Like, let's go. Challenged myself to do something even harder. Started getting up even earlier, putting in even more work. Started doing jujitsu in 2020. And sometime in like 2021, I just said to my coach, I'm like, hey, if I wanted to like do a fight, I see these guys training for this, like, could I do that? And I was initially thinking like an inner gym kind of thing, like,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, no, if you do the work, we'll get you like a real fight. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's do it. So I set my mind to it. And around that time, like is when I've really started to practice the concept of like honoring the commitments I make to myself in all areas of my life. Like, I think if they take away one thing from the thing that's changed my life the most is that, like, if I say I'm going to do something and it ain't for anyone else, but for myself, like I'm going to do it
Mm.
no matter the content, the challenges that face me. So I set that goal way back then. It's 2025, man. And I'm just about to get in the cage August 8th. I've had
Of
ACL
2025.
tears, MCL tears, separated, all kinds of
Wow.
delays and all that. And I was selling the business, so like it wasn't as much of a priority, but went through all that and I've kept my eye on this vision, on this goal. And here, August 8th, I'm going to step in the cage and do an amateur MMA fight. So this was from a recent hard sparring I had with a 26-year-old.
How much work does it take to actually prepare for something like that?
Well, it depends on how good you want to be when you do it, but I put in countless hours. I train like probably 2 to 3 hours a day.
Wow.
Meal preparation, eating well, denying myself a lot of fun things, right? My life's pretty cool, dude. I could be out at dinners and drinking margaritas all I want, all that shit.
Yeah.
And instead, I'm up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, running, training, doing jujitsu, coming home, eating clean, going to bed early, all that kind of stuff now for a long time.
Hey, how do you think that goal, that new goal after the exit, has
Yeah,
been helpful for, if at all, overall stability of your
massive.
life, your family? And I want to go in that direction because I don't, well,
Yeah.
that isn't talked about as much.
Yeah. So about a month after I sold the business, I got depressed again.
You noticed that it was a
Oh, I
physiological
was I was
response.
aimless. I just was like, well, what the hell am I doing? Like I woke up
Yeah,
and I realized
there's
in that moment I need a drag in the sleigh all the time. Like that's when I realized that people need purpose. There is no end to this. And anyone out there who thinks that getting a fancy car and getting a bunch of money is going to just solve all your problems, you're so dead wrong. I
I would,
can't
it
express that
creates more
enough.
anxiety.
So much. It just creates a whole nother set of problems. And like, guess what? I still got two young kids. I still got a wife. All those same responsibilities are there.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit about the money or any of it. Just dad and husband and like life, all the same things still have to happen and get done, right? So you still have to show up every day. Those challenges and that, desire to be good at that doesn't go away. And when you've had such a massive goal and like this mission that you marched every day and it like lights you up every day, like, you don't mind working the hours, you don't mind the stress, like it all is like fun, this act of creating this thing and achieving this massive goal. When that goes away, you realize you're like, man, I need purpose. I need bigger things to do. And so, I read a cool book called Die with Zero, Bill Perkins. If you
Bill
haven't checked it
Perkins?
out, really check it out.
Cool.
And he talks about it just really informs your relationship with time and wealth, right? And like how you look at things. And this traditional model of like waiting till the end of your life to accumulate a bunch of stuff, then enjoy it. It was like it's kind of the wrong way to look at it, right? If I can invest in memories now and they pay dividends the rest of my life. And one of the things with the fight was very much that I'm like, I need a drag in the sleigh. I need
Wow.
something to do. I could use a break from business for a while. And I have my health, my vitality now. Like, why not maximize that while I can and do a really tough, like physical pursuit? Still need a big challenge, still need something that a drag in the sleigh, right? Something to chase and that's hard, like exiting a business and all. But let's make it a physical pursuit. Let's make it something personal to me that I can go after. And that's when I chose this because it was the realm I'm in. And when I'm done this, I'll do more stuff.
Ah, so Beirut Fund is the not
Oh,
charity.
the
I
Baru
want to save
Fund.
it.
So
Baru.
yeah, I started a
So
charitable fund when I sold the business. So I donate to charities that help with like mentoring and leading children and educating them. And so the Baru is from the old Irish king Brian Baru.
Oh, wow. Wait,
My
how do you
my
spell that?
uncle used to call me Brian Baru, Boru. So he's a famous king who helped like unite Ireland against the Vikings,
Oh,
drive out
I
the
love
Vikings.
that. I got to
Yeah,
research that. The
yeah,
audience
and
might
it
not know
comes.
I'm 99.7% Irish. I just found that out on 23andMe last year.
Yeah, well, I have a
You
pretty
know,
cool uncle who was the model for me in my life for like entrepreneurship. He started his own insurance company and stuff like that. And he used to call me Brian Baru because he saw like I guess he just always thought I had like leadership qualities. I was fiery, and
wow.
I guess Brian Baru had like red hair and all this stuff. So and I read up on him, and he was like a pretty interesting guy, right? And he just kind of led by example. He was a warrior king, and so I kind of model my life after that. And the mission of the fund is to support charities that lead, serve, and inspire the next generation. So, and that's kind of my mission now.
But people that are, can people go see the fight?
Yeah, I would love people to come down. It's going to be Lakeland, August 8th. If you follow my social, the Brian McNally, I've got some pinned links up there for you to RSVP. And I'll soon have like a microsite up where I can send you a link to purchase tickets and like a fight shirt so that we can raise money for all the profits from both of
That's
those
what
will
I
go
was
to the
gonna.
charity.
Yeah, so all the money goes to the charity. Now you're talking about mentoring the fund, so it goes to different charities that you think actually have a
Various
purpose
charities.
and make things happen.
Yeah, so I've supported a Link to Foundation. They build schools in like Africa and other parts of the world. I've supported the Costello Boxing Gym in Northeast Philly, where I'm from, and that's a 501c3 where they it's a 100% charity. They take kids off the street after school, put them into boxing, teach them leadership skills. I go and I talk to them often and donate to that. And yeah, there's other various charities like that I look to support and I want to continue to support.
Why, why the younger? I'd
Yeah,
love to own an orphanage someday.
yeah. I just feel like, well, I do work with adults. Like I've started a men's group and things like that, but that's more of just on it's not really a charitable endeavor. Um, I don't know. There's not, I feel like the country as a whole lacks leadership, right? And if we can, and I'm a
Absolutely.
firm believer in leadership impacting culture, right? And if you have really strong leaders, that they will change things. And I don't want to say I've given up on our current leadership, but I want to, much like I'm planning ahead for the future, I'm kind of looking forward. I'm like, well, if we teach these kids really strong leadership skills and mold the leaders of tomorrow and teach them the importance of operating with integrity and the importance of operating with values and taking care of their community and, how to be resilient and, and focus on personal growth and all these sort of things. If we can model that for that group, that they can take the torch and actually be the change that we're going to need.
Hmm. What is the dream design and do? Saw that on your
Mhm.
profile.
Yeah, so it's just like a tactical approach I have to achieve anything that you want, right? Like I had a dream once of retiring early and living a life of freedom. And if you think about where I came from, I was flipping cheesesteaks and cleaning toilets when I first came up, when I first decided I was going to be wealthy one day, right? Yeah. And I was selling drugs. I was like
Wow.
17, right? Like, and I'm
Wow.
like, no, this isn't going to be my life. Like one day no clue how I'm going to do any of this. And it's decades by the time I get there. But I had this dream in my head. And ultimately, what I've since figured out is there's really nothing you can't accomplish. If you have a dream, you put the plan in place, that's the kind of the design, right? And then you have to take action. And you can do this on an iterative basis. I think that's the important part. The fight, I started by going to the gym, training a little bit more, put a schedule in place, doing that, getting in shape, fixing your relationships. There's really no area of your life that you shouldn't pursue your potential. And the dream design do is really just a tactical approach to how you execute on that. And you just pick really small things in each of those areas, put a plan in place and chip away at it, right? It's kind of like the 20 million in 5 to 7 years. Okay, cool. Well, first thing I got to do is make some phone calls. All right, I'm going to make 10 a week and then I'm going to do this. And you just build towards it,
And you were in consulting at was it High Point for some
Yeah,
time?
High Point was a consulting
With a
firm. I
lot of
worked for Workforce
travel, right?
Solutions.
Like,
Yeah.
did you have a heart for that? The advisor piece, the the consulting piece?
I was in the sales side of that. I thought it was really interesting the way that management consulting works, right? The I think I naturally do like, providing counsel to people, right? And sharing my experiences and helping them see the light and kind of execute. It's a lot of fun, right? I did it in my business as a leader, and I like to seek solutions, right? I'm always kind of looking at the strategy and problem solving. And so that's so much of that is that, right?
Mm.
Like, well, hey, tell me what's going on. Let's figure out a way to fix this for you. And that's why I'm leaning into the coaching and consulting now.
I was going to ask because many of our listeners likely are
Yeah.
thinking, all right, how do I get near Brian? So
Yeah.
what's your take on that
Yeah.
bit more of your expansion on that
Yeah.
uh, world culture process and yeah.
Yeah. So some of it now is kind of in development. I've been doing some just one-on-one stuff now, like executive
Wow.
coaching, but and life coaching, really kind of, I guess you call it life coaching, right? I'm helping some folks with
Yep.
so UFC fighter I'm working with now who retired, and I'm kind of helping provide him some guidance on how to build the next phase of his life.
So like organically you're attracting people that have gone through that process that
Yeah.
haven't figured their next dragon out.
Yeah. It's
That's
crazy.
fascinating.
It just kind of happens,
That's a
right?
huge market.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm helping people with that. And so with the book that I'm writing,
It's an
uh,
interesting market too, because I can't imagine most people would feel bad for that person because they're still thinking that absent maybe like clinically trained people,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like everybody has problems. They're just different
everybody's got
problems.
problems, man.
But like that's a really big that's exciting to hear. It's like I think
Yeah. So like if you're a business leader and you're in a startup and you're trying to make your plan to get to an exit, right? And maybe you don't have the best strategy, you can't quite figure out how to get there, you're struggling. That's someone I can help. Or maybe you are being successful and you realize that your personal life and your relationships are shit and you're just unhappy physically, right? And like you're like, wait, I thought I was supposed to be happy. I'm making money, like I'm doing the thing. Yeah, I've been there. I can help you with that too.
mm,
The idea for me, what my passion is pursuing my potential in all areas of my life, right? And I really want to live intentionally. And then the book I'm writing is about that. So it's a tactical guide to kind of live with intention, pursue your potential, and reject regret. Because I think so many of us are marching towards a life of regret. And that's what I want to help as many people as possible avoid. So from a very tactical perspective, entrepreneurs, business, like, who need that executive level coaching, both from how do I manage this on a personal level, but even tactically within my business, how do I create, the infrastructure, all those kind of things I can help. More broadly with the book, and what I'm creating is a community, that I can help anybody who wants to avoid regret and kind of be a catalyst for change in their life.
wow.
So that's not fully out yet, but that'll be coming.
What in the process of building Meleeo, what did you learn from Jason?
Oh man. One of the coolest things about that guy is, well, we talk about the ability to take risk, like just pull it. Like, so he actually started the business before me when we did it. We had been talking and he was like, hey, I can't wait anymore. I'm going. And I'm like, he's like a new baby at home, sole
Wow.
provider, like was like, screw it. I'm going. I'm like, well, what exactly are you going to be doing? He's like, I don't even care. Like I'm doing it. And I'm like, you're a maniac. So like, but like the what I learned from him is that like you're never gonna have all the answers, because him and I were like rattling our brains, like what do we do? How do we do it? And he was finally like, I'm done talking, I'm going. Like I'm gonna trust myself to figure it out. And that was huge. Like the idea that you're never gonna have all the answers. You just have to trust yourself to figure it out. Like that's one of the main things I learned from him. And then very from like a tactical perspective, from like a sales strategy perspective, he might be one of the best I've ever seen at getting claustrophobic. And I don't think people understand how hard that is. Meaning, we could call in any hospital we wanted throughout the whole country. He would pick like three, and he would call nobody else but those people.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And he would live in it. I would freak out. I'm like, no, I got to call like 1,000 people and try and, whittle it down. He's like, nope, I'm just going to, I will find them. like a
Wow,
bloodhound.
that's really
And I
interesting.
think it's a good lesson for like salespeople, business owners. Like you don't need this massive market to be successful. You just need to be excellent and get narrowly focused and execute really, really well in that area. If you live, eat, and breathe like that,
Yeah.
that narrow thing, you will succeed. you can't, because all your energy is going into this very narrow focused area. And I learned that from him, and he's great at that.
What do you what do you think he'd say he's learned from you?
Oh man.
He paid me to ask that question. I'm just kidding.
um, a little, probably that he would be like, you give the speeches, you be the rah rah guy, like a little bit of that. Like he didn't want to be
Cool.
the front man, right? So like, I think that's one of the things that I think he's always kind of given me credit for, is like to rally the troops and
Love
be
that.
the culture driver and all that kind of stuff, right?
That's so fascinating because some of the best partnerships I've ever seen and been a part of, that dynamic. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very powerful.
Hmm.
I gotta ask this, the audience, uh small, medium-sized businesses, two of the biggest things that undermine business success is partnership divorce
Yeah.
and of course, interpersonal. So what advice do you have on like I read a book once on Hewlett Packard, the guys that ran that. They like never it was an amazing partnership. Charlie, we lost on November 28th of 2024, Charlie Munger at
Yep.
99 years old and 11 months. Him and Warren partner 65 years or something. Um, something like that. What
Yep.
advice do you have on how to have a partnership?
Greed and ego, leave them at the door. First and foremost, it's not, this goes back to having that shared mission. It was bigger than us. It was bigger than any one of us, either like, people would ask us who runs the company. I mean, we would look at each other and be like, I don't give a shit. Like, as long as we're getting the job done, right? Like, we didn't care. We didn't care who took the credit. We didn't care who worked harder. I mean, there was times throughout those years where one of us was hurting, man. We were just burned out. Life. I mean, we got kids,
Mm,
and we're sole providers. We've got young kids in diapers and not sleeping. Like, we're in that level while building this company, and we're grinding. And you could just tell someone's checked out. It was never a conversation like, "Hey, man, you're not working real hard this week." It was just like, "I'll work harder. I got you." You know what I mean? Like it because it wasn't about either of our individual needs. It was about our shared mission to accomplish together. Um, we didn't squabble over money. We didn't, like, it was like, I think a lot of times people will fight over pennies and leave the dollars, it's like, it's crazy. And not to divulge our business, but there's equity plays and all
yes.
these things that come into
Yeah.
play. And we were like, we would have those conversations very directly and like clearly, and they were always done with empathy and with the reality of like,
Mm,
hey man, if we just achieve the goal, we're both going to be fine. Like, it's all good. Like, let's just focus on what's important. Um, and
wow.
then, so the other big things that we were very much aligned on life, like what was important to us. Like, our families were important to us. We both wanted to be there for dance recitals and those kind of things. So if one of us was like, hey, I got to leave early to hit my daughter's dance recital, it was never like, oh, well, come on, man, I'm working late tonight. Like, why aren't you here with me? It was cool. Go do that. We both value that. Right. And that went for our employees too. Like, if you need to go to your son's mathletes, so like that was what, like with Jenny was a great example. Her son was in like mathletes, all this stuff. She's like, I got to go. Like, see
Wow.
ya, do it, have fun, make sure somebody's covering. We never ever gave anyone like that's not a thing with us. We actually would be mad if they didn't do that, and we were the same for ourselves,
Oh, why mad if they didn't?
because then they start to resent their job and us, right? And it's like, you can work really hard and still honor your family and your life. Like, I don't, this whole like work life balance shit, like, integrate the two. It gets a lot easier. If you try and have this distinction where you're always on or always off, like, yeah, then it sucks. But you got 24 hours in a day and there's 7 days in a week. Like, there's no reason you have to cram it all into five, like, it doesn't make sense. So like, a good example is like, I don't know, sometimes people burn out. They're like, dude, I want to leave early today. It's like a Friday. I'm like, all right, you got anything else to do? They're like, not really. Like, I'm like, log out. See ya. You got your phone if we need you. Or just, you wanted to leave early that week to go do something for your kid. Like, cool. You'll work a little bit on Saturday to get that done because we need it Monday, right? And that's the
Mm,
accountability part. If you're accountable, you have the flexibility. We call it flexibility with accountability. You have the flexibility to live your life and do what you need to do, but you're still accountable for the work to get done. And that's where the teammates come in, and that's where that trust got built, because we'd all pick up for each other. It was like, hey, I got to be at my son's thing. Who can help me out? Well, I got you. Well, I got my son's thing tomorrow. Can you cover for me? Yep, no problem. Got it. And we would just take care of each other because we actually gave a shit. It's like what we talked
I
about in the
love,
beginning, right? Like, don't be a dick, actually give a shit
I like
about
the
people
quote.
and
Yeah.
be amazed what they'll do for you. That's it in a nutshell. And me and him modeled that for each other. And our team saw that. And so that they did it for each other. Right. And so those are huge things in partnership. Like, remember what your mission is, right? Like, what are you fighting over? The same with like compensating your team. Like, overcompensate them. Yeah, you will have made more money in this individual year, but if your goal is to ultimately exit, they're growing the business for you. Like, give it away now so you can make it later. Like, and get everyone happy and on board. That's all. I mean, I think those are the really big things. Like, you can't get tied up in greed and ego. You have to be aligned on what the mission was. So when we went to sell, there was a lot of brokers and business people and advisors telling us to like keep going. Like, you guys are crazy for selling this thing. You got this
Wow.
great kegger. Like, why not just bring in some private equity and then take it
Mm,
to 200 million or whatever, right? But it didn't align with our goal. Like, our goal
mm,
was to create freedom in our life in a certain amount of time while we were young enough to enjoy it with our young children.
wow.
I've got the rest of my life to do business and I will. We'll do something again probably, but right now,
What are you 60? No,
yeah,
you're
43, you
like
know
a
what I mean?
young
Like,
guy. Yeah, you're a young dude. I mean,
yeah,
congratulations. Seriously. That's a
yeah.
small percentage of the population that ever accomplishes something like that.
I think intense focus for a short amount of time and the right people around you, you can accomplish anything.
I I want to ask about culture, what it means to you, like how
Hmm.
your take if you were to do, teach you know, a
Hmm.
10-minute lecture, how would you one of my goals is to really simplify it,
Yeah.
culture, right? I think it matters. And when I first started the
Oh,
company, I thought I really understood it. If I didn't think that, I don't think I would have started. Now I've learned, and now I don't. I'm more confused than I started. But I love your example, and there's so much here. But yeah, I'd love to hear your take on culture
yeah.
as someone that has done it.
Yeah. I think, it's interesting. I think it's the lived expression of your values as a leader permeated throughout the organization. And then you can hire to those values. And then your job is just, you know, to ensure that you're creating an environment and removing the roadblocks so that people can continue to live those values. And that ultimately, that culture will become your brand. To be honest, people talk about brand, like, what is that? I'm like, it's how you show up in the world to your customers and your clients and your in the internal stakeholders.
Mm,
So like, our internal culture is ultimately kind of our brand, right? So a big thing we said a lot was do what's right, not what's common. Do what's right, not what's common. And that just has to do with like
wow.
living the golden rule, like treat people how you would want to be treated. Is it the right thing to do? That's where we started. And then we'd ask, like, well, how much money is this going to cost us? Right. But the reality is, it was like, all right, well,
Wow,
we already kind
powerful.
of know the right thing here. Right. Like, we're not just making a business decision, we're making a values based decision. And I hate the
Huh.
concept of like, oh, these are our core values and they're written on our office wall or whatever. And I'm like, it's just bullshit somebody made up in a meeting. They're usually done in like a couple hours, right? They're like, everyone throws some cool words on a wall and then we'll pull out the ones we like and then we'll say what it means to us and we'll put it on the website. We'll never look at it again.
I love that because you're absolutely right. And in fact, it becomes almost an expression, a projection.
Yeah. It's
It becomes
it's
about everyone else and not myself.
right,
You
right.
ever see, yeah, or
It's
it's
hypocrisy
like
at its finest.
this is what we're looking for, and everyone's looking for what doesn't exist because it's through each person.
And that's why when you
I lo-
asked like what I think is, it's like the lived expression of your
yeah,
values.
really well articulated.
Yeah, because it has to be lived and modeled. And it's not just a thing you aspire to. It's who you are, right? And so you hire people accordingly.
every time we get in a every time we get in a real bad spat, I'll just say but I aspire to be great. But you keep acting this way. Yeah. No, that's what came into the.
Yeah. And it's good. I mean, listen,
Man, I love
we're
it.
not always going to be
Yeah.
perfect.
No.
And
No. No.
but that's the purpose of it, right? Is to recognize that in people and, you know,
What worked in your team meetings? Like,
oh,
I'm implying, of course, that you even had them or how often you had them. Of course, that's all size of the organization and some.
yeah.
I'm curious what your take on them were as a go-go organization
Yeah.
and how you made them effective, what you learned, as we close. You're always welcome back. This has
Yeah.
been a
Yeah.
blast.
Always. Yeah. So, as I mentioned before with the McNasty story, like for me, meetings are about getting shit done. Right. And that was almost like one of our little internal themes. It was like Meleeo, we get shit done. Like that was like our own little pride, like our own little standard. Like we don't have time for foo-foo bullshit. Like I don't want to be standing in a meeting any longer than I have to. Like there would be times where I would dismiss members of the team because they no longer needed to be there. And I'm not going to make them like, hey, you said your part, go back to work. See ya. What do you guys have? Right. Like, so it was all like, I think because we're so focused on people's emotions and the perception of like hearing people and all these sort of things that like we forget that the purpose of the business is to either serve a client, right? Like you have to start with that in mind. And if you're not constantly looking to improve to make that better, then what's the point, right? So like the meetings were only functional in purpose, right? It was like, okay, how do we move this forward? Where are we at? Like status stuff, right? And so whenever possible, we try to accelerate that through like documents and spreadsheets, like things like that we could see. Like, why are we going to sit here and talk about something we could send in an email? Like, we really try to do a better job of that because we all came from organizations where like, everyone walks out of that meeting, you're like, well, that's an email I could have gotten and just saved an hour of my life. Like, we kind of kept that in our head a lot. Like, how do we make sure we don't
Yeah.
hurt those people? And then it was the meetings were meant to, like challenge, right? So most of our meetings were stand-ups around delivery and performance or,
Mm.
roadblocks that needed to be removed and things like that. And so my job as the leader is to listen to the team, remove those roadblocks so that they can be better at their job. And their job is to make me aware of those things in an environment that they feel they can be radically candid and say like, hey dude, this is causing a problem and here's why. And this thing that you're mad about over here, like you don't understand why we're losing money over here. It's because of these 5 things and they make my job crazy. Can we not do them? Right. And then as a leader, I kind of look at all the pieces and go, well, these 2 I can, that one you're stuck with. Like, we just got to figure that out. Right. Like, but as much as possible, I tried to remove, that was like my thought process was like, you guys tell me the best way to get this done because you're the ones doing it. I'll put it in the context of the broader business to make sure that you're not missing anything. But short of that, yeah, let's make it happen. I mean, there was times in our meetings where we would log into the CRM and make a change right there in front of the whole team. Like, everyone agree? This is a roadblock. This needs to be fixed. What should it be? We all agree? Okay, great. Done. Move on. And that kind of speed, dude, it makes you hard to beat, but also you want to get a team of people bought in and engaged and ready to run through brick walls. Like, listen to them, implement, and then real time implement the shit they say is going to work. If you get everyone to agree right away, and if you have 1 or 2 dissenting voices, you actually hear them and we challenge. And the key was like, we challenged that, like, oh, maybe that one person's right. We should probably listen to this. Like, tell me again, why do you think that? Did anyone think of that? You know what I mean? Like, because it was never done with ego. It was always done with like, how do we make this shit better so that we can deliver better for our clients and faster and more efficiently for us.
I want to make sure the audience understands this clearly. You are in a season where you are helping others.
Yeah.
So if they're listening, who are they? Where are they at in their life, thinking wise, and how can they get in contact with you the fastest?
Yeah, BrianMcNally.com has a link to all my social media, has a contact form. If you're interested in like one-on-one executive coaching, reach out. I'm not taking on a bunch of people, right? But ideally for me, entrepreneurs, people from, 0 to 50 million, maybe even 100 million, like startups, whether you're looking to try and figure out how to scale and exit your business, or figure out how to remove yourself, get to the point where you can remove yourself from the business and kind of really scale. Or maybe on the personal side, you're struggling to enjoy your business and your life, right? While running a business, I can help there. I mean, I'd really like to work with people holistically. I like the X's
Mm,
and O's of business and strategy and all that kind of stuff, and I could certainly do it. But my real passion is like leadership and working with executives, right? Like I want to help you be a better leader so you can have a better team and that your company can be serve people better, right? And that's important to me.
amen. I
And then as far as just following the socials in general,
uh
if you're not an entrepreneur, you're just looking for change in your life, you hopefully want to be inspired to kind of like do more, follow the socials. And that's where I'll have the book coming out. You can go on the website and sign up to be made aware of the book. And
oh,
then
what's it called?
fuck average.
Fuck yeah. That's we're explicit on the show. So if they listen to us this long, they'll have, here's the
Yeah.
F average. I love it.
Yeah, man. The idea is so the average person lives a life of regret. They end up living a life that society told them they should live. They never, I worked in case management, and like I met these hospice nurses, and I ended up reading this like survey, and it was basically that one of the number one regret like people have, like the average person always says, I wish I would have had done the thing I wanted to do. I wish I would
Wow.
have lived the life I wanted to live, not the life I kind of marched myself into. And as someone who marched into that life, right, myself, and just sleepwalked through life and didn't have control and was out of shape and unhappy in my relationships, I reject that notion. Like I will never go back. And I want to wake up as many people as possible to avoid that life of regret. And so that's where the book will be like a tactical guide for the Dream Design Do is the method that I will help people with a plan throughout the book to be able to do that. And then ultimately, I'm going to have a community that people can get into. We'll have resources for folks to, challenge and inspire themselves to do better.
On that note, a dear friend of the Culture Matters podcast, probably a dozen times, our mutual friend, who is part of how we got together, Mike
Yeah.
Calhoun,
He's
been on
the
the show
idea
at
for that
least
name.
12 times. Well, so my question on that is, this is his liturgy. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
How'd you meet Mike? And if you were to summarize him in a paragraph and what he's done with his family with Board of Advisors, how would you break
Yeah.
that
So
down?
I got involved with Board of Advisors through Adam Taylor, who's with
Oh,
Taylor
wow.
Financial in Tampa.
Yeah.
Really great guy. He got me connected there. And then I met Mike and just got along great with Mike. Mike's a force of nature, right? I mean, that's the best way to describe him, but he just gets it. I mean, the guy just
Yeah.
understands how to connect and not just connect people, but connect the dots in business and opportunity, and like seeing how the different pieces fit together. Because he's got such a breadth of experience with so many different people, so many different industries. That's what I love about BA. It's cool. It's like, yeah, I'm a staffing guy. I've got a certain background, but then I'm dealing with like real estate people, tech guys, and it's like everyone has these different lenses they look through. And what's cool about Mike is he's like the prism that can like connect them all, right? It all kind of comes through him and refracts out a different way. And he knows how to put all that together, which is super cool. And he's actually the one that gave me the the challenge to go with fuck average as the name, because
Wow, that's so cool.
I had a holding company. It was FCK AVG. Again, I was talking about like, I don't know what this brand needs to be. And it was very vanilla, the stuff I was coming up with. And he's like, what's this over here? And I'm like, oh, that's my holding company. He's like, no, that's your brand. Like from now on, that's the community. That's the book. Like, just own it, dude. Be who you are. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I think so much of, I spent so much time in the corporate world and all that kind of stuff. I was like, at the end of the day, I'm a gritty guy from Philly. Like, I don't say it. I call them how I see them. So I'm not going to shy away from how I call it. Right. And so I reject the
Well,
notion of the average life of regret. And I want to bring as many people to that as possible.
I love Mike. You guys remind me of each other in the best possible way. I think it makes me happy that he has people like you in his life. So,
Mm.
and hey, if you're listening to this podcast, go to you said brianmcnally.com
Yep.
and fill out whatever form you have to get connected. That's my challenge. And I'd listen to this at least 2 or 3 times, get a practical take on company culture, leadership, entrepreneurship, and so much more. Thank you. So I can't wait till we do this again. You're welcome back anytime. If you're listening to this, please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time. Thank you for the opportunity, my friend. It's been an honor.
Thanks for having me, man. It was awesome.